Sleeping Beauty. We all know the story. A beautiful princess, a wicked fairy's curse, 100 years of magical slumber, and a handsome prince's kiss that breaks the spell. It's the ultimate romantic fairy tale. But what if I told you the real story wasn't a fairy tale at all? What if it was a medical mystery shrouded in terror? Long before Disney, long before the Brothers Grimm or even Charles Perrault, the story of Sleeping Beauty was circulating in a much darker, more disturbing form. To understand it, we have to go back to the Middle Ages, a time when science was in its infancy and the line between the natural and the supernatural was blurred. People didn't understand neurology, sleep disorders, or comas. So when someone, particularly a young woman, suddenly fell into a deep, unresponsive sleep and couldn't be woken, it wasn't seen as a medical condition, it was seen as magic, or a curse. One of the earliest and most direct inspirations for the tale comes from medieval medical records and local legends. These weren't stories of enchanted princesses in castles. They were real accounts of young women who entered coma-like states. This could happen after a severe illness, an accidental poisoning, or a traumatic injury. They would lie perfectly still, sometimes for days, weeks, or even months. One of the first written versions, found in a French romance from the 14th century, tells a story far from our modern version. There's no fairy godmother, no spinning wheel, and definitely no gentle, beautiful sleep. Instead, the woman appears lifeless. She doesn't breathe, she doesn't move, she doesn't respond to anything. Her family, believing she was dead, prepared for her burial. But then, something strange would happen. Her body wouldn't decay. In an age without modern embalming, this was seen as a powerful signproof that she wasn't truly gone. Imagine the absolute terror of that situation. Your loved one looks dead, feels cold to the touch, but weeks pass and they remain unchanged. In medieval Europe, this terrifying phenomenon was often caused by conditions we now understand, like encephalitis, lethargica, also known as sleeping sickness or catalepsy, a neurological disorder that causes muscle rigidity and a loss of consciousness that can perfectly mimic death. There are chilling historical accounts from this period of people waking up just before burial, or even more horrifyingly, inside their own coffins. These weren't just ghost stories. They were a very real fear, rooted in the limitations of medieval medicine. Without the tools to confirm death, these rare but shocking cases became the seeds of legend. One medieval chronicle tells the story of a noblewoman who suddenly collapsed during a feast. She remained unconscious for months, completely unresponsive. Her family prayed, consulted physicians who could do nothing, and resigned themselves to her fate. Then, one day, just as suddenly as she had fallen, she woke up. To her, it felt as if only a few moments had passed. She had no memory of the lost time. To her family, it was nothing short of a miracle. To the surrounding village, it was proof of supernatural forces at play. This is how the story transformed. Over generations of retelling, the raw, terrifying reality was polished into a fantastical narrative. Fear turned into fantasy. The unexplained illness became a wicked fairy's curse. The terrifying, death-like coma was reimagined as a peaceful, century-long slumber. And what about the prince's kiss? In the original stories, there was often no kiss. The princess wakes up on her own, or in some much grislier versions, she is assaulted in her sleep and only wakes up after giving birth. The romantic kiss was a later addition, a symbolic representation for the moment the body finally, inexplicably, recovered on its own. The original story had nothing to do with romance. It was about helplessness in the face of the unknown. It was about the profound fear of being buried alive. It was about the fragile, terrifying line between life and death. The tale of Sleeping Beauty isn't a story about true love's kiss. It's a story about how our ancestors tried to make sense of the unexplainable. Long before science could provide the answers, the legend survived not because it was a beautiful romance, but because it was born from a very real, very human terror. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by the dark origins of the stories we think we know, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We've got a lot more to uncover. See you next time.